Arizona Independent Senator Kyrsten Sinema is preparing to run for re-election based on some reporting I have here for you. And this actually has some significant ramifications because of the role that an independent candidate will play in an election where there's also a Democratic and Republican candidate, and actually could be very dangerous for what it means about that race, that seat, that Senate seat. So before I discuss further on that front, here's the reporting from the Wall Street Journal. Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema, the Democrat turned independent, is preparing for a re-election campaign, setting the stage for what could be an unpredictable three-way contest in the highly competitive state. Ms. Sinema and her team gathered in Phoenix earlier this week for a staff retreat, according to people familiar with the session. One meeting included a slideshow laying out a timeline of a potential run, according to slides reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. While Ms. Sinema hasn't announced her plans, the materials reviewed by the Journal provide details on steps Ms. Sinema is taking to potentially run for re-election. And then it starts to dive into some of the effects of this, but I can kind of summarize that for you. Because Kyrsten Sinema is an independent, but used to be a Democrat, in theory, if she ran, she would get a lot of, not a lot, but of the voters that she got, a lot of them would be Democrats, because presumably based on how she votes, she's still more left of center, even though, of course, she's assisted in the blocking of a lot of really good things that the Biden administration put forward and all of that we've walked through. But still, a good amount of Democrats likely, if she's going to get votes, will vote for her, and it'll be Democrats. And so that'll take away from the Democratic candidate, and the Republican could be helped. Now, she's going to frame this as, I'm the centrist candidate and we'll get a little Republican, a little Democrat. I don't see that as very likely, just in the current political environment we're in. And hopefully, based on polling, Ruben Gallego, who's the Democrat who's in the race right now, will likely be the Democratic nominee for that senatorial election. He still polls well, even when someone like Kari Lake is the other person being polled. Kari Lake, Kyrsten Sinema as an independent, and then Ruben Gallego. But it's going to be a lot harder to defeat someone such as Kari Lake if you have Kyrsten Sinema just mixing things up in there. And that's what I'm really afraid of. Kyrsten Sinema is very unpopular now within the state, and so I don't think she's going to be able to win as an independent. Pretty confident, actually. I would put a good amount of money down that she will not be able to win if she decides to run for re-election. She's alienated so many of the core groups of her Democratic base with her obstruction, with a lot of things that really would have benefited her voters, that the Biden administration and every other Democratic senator other than Manchin were on board with and put forward and were pushing. And it was her and Joe Manchin who stood against that. And that, while for Joe Manchin didn't hurt him because he's in West Virginia, it did hurt her. And so she will have a very difficult time running a re-election campaign. But she'll get some support. And that could be very damaging for the Democratic candidate. Maybe she takes Republican votes. I just don't see that as likely. But feel free to disagree with me. You can find me all over the place, one of them being Instagram, Luke Beasley Official.